Our next speaker, Ed, who is, by the way, the driving force behind the pen posse. Now, when I was going through life, I always thought I would never join a club that would have me as a member, as Woody Allen said. But thanks to Ed, I joined my first club, which is the pen posse. So we all get together, a bunch of guys showing up and women showing up with our pens, showing each other our pens, how they work and that. But for those of you that still love the joy of just writing with a pen or taking the time to write an actual thank you note with your script and writing and everything else, it was really, to me, a very enjoyable moment. I mean, suddenly I had this whole new interest. So it was a toss-up. Do I collect my knives, which I like to throw? No, I'm just kidding. Or pens with which I like to write. But anyway, Ed has lived in Longmont since 1966. He works as a consultant in the information security fields. Since Ed works with computers all day, most of his hobbies are the analog variety: hiking, photography, and of course, fountain pens. And by the way, before I let Ed come up, I want you to know Ed was one of the driving forces to bring the first actual pen show to Colorado. So on October the 11th and 12th, there's going to be a big pen show in Denver, and Ed will be there signing autographs with his fountain pen. So at this time, let's give Ed a really warm Pecha welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Now, fortunately, since Greg did such a good job on the intro, I really don't have to say anything. But I did want to let people know this is kind of how our culture is. This cartoon's drawn by a friend of mine. You spend all day on the computer, your pen shows up, you're thrilled, and then you have to go back to using the computer. So I'm going to explain to you why I like fountain pens, and hopefully maybe you can like them too. When you use a fountain pen, there is a sense of history. You have the quill background. You also have a sense of art. This is actually done by an artist who takes fountain pens and writes on paper that already has water on it so the ink runs. There's a little bit of science going on because hopefully if the movie runs, yes, this is capillary action, which allows water and other fluids to traverse very narrow gaps, even defying gravity. You have a fountain pen in your pocket, you have a science experiment. And they're fun. You have history and science all in one place. A little bit of vocabulary. This is a fountain pen. The top is a cap. The body, barrel. This is a clip, which is also known as part of the furniture. Any of the metal bits on the pen are called the furniture. This will be helpful as we move through the rest of the presentation. Now, the outside's interesting, but the inside is even more so. Because now, when you look at this, this is the business end of the pen. This is the nib. This is where the actual ink meets the paper. And you have to understand there's a trifecta: ink, nib, and paper. So if you like any of those things, you'll like fountain pens. The section is the bit you hold, and inside the body of the pen is where the ink is. Now, there's various and sundry ways the ink is stored in the pen. The older pens use a rubber bladder. Our newer pens are using those little teeny tiny cartridges, which are plastic little chambers full of ink. This is a cartridge converter, which puts a piston in place of that cartridge, and this is an actual piston. Using it, very simple. On the cartridge, all you have to do is snap the cartridge into the back of the section, and you're done. On the more complicated pens, you have to put the nib in the ink, twist a little bit on the back, draw the ink up into the pen, and you're done. If you have a bladder, all you have to do is push on the bladder a couple of times, and the ink goes up into the little rubber sack. Now, we're going to do a little myth busting. Fountain pens are boring because, after all, look at these ballpoints. 20 colors. Everything from baby pink to mandarin orange, pure pink, ruby sky, brown, black, emerald, and aren't they pretty? Well, here's the issue. Most people think of what's on the top as a fountain pen. Black, dark rubber, But fountain pens come in an array of colors too. Furthermore, they're clear so you get to see what color of ink is on the inside, just like the other pens. But instead of there being 20 colors for fountain pens, not only can you choose one of these colors. Now let's go back. We said there were 20 colors in ballpoints. How many people think 20 is a good number? Lots of colors, all right. Well, if you actually go and start using bottled fountain pen ink, this 20 looks really small because look at the top. Greg gave me a pointer somewhere. Fountain pen ink, just from one website, there are 360 colors of ink from just one manufacturer. Now, unlike the others, I'm not going to read them to you, but you can start seeing that you've got browns, you've got oranges, you've got pinks, blues, blacks, greens, and that's just on one slide. So, another myth. Fountain pens are really expensive. They're only for rich people. $3.99 will get you a platinum prepper to get you started. A Uniball rollerball is $3.14. And oh, by the way, look at this. The fountain pen's green. Why? When that other pen's empty, you throw away the whole pen. The fountain pen, you put more ink in it. You keep driving. Fountain pens are complex is another myth. How many people think they could take that little bitty piece of plastic and push it into the little hole, round peg into the round hole, folks? It all works. Can you dip the nib into the bottle and twist a few times? I think so. Now, this myth, there's some truth to it. Now, it's not going to be that bad. You do get ink on your fingers, but in this modern age, you're more likely to have this kind of ink on your fingers than you will ink from a fountain pen. They don't leak. Always. Another myth. Fountain pens are only used by freaks, geeks, and people who still like buggy whips. This is the pen posse that Greg was referring to earlier. It's a pen club, but pen club sounds so boring, where pen posse sounds cool. These are people that get together, you talk about what inks you use, you have some fun. Now, if you want to choose a fountain pen, one of the first things you have to decide is cost. Here's our $3.99 pen up here. If you move down into something that's made of carbon fiber and has a retractable nib, it's a little bit more. And if you're going to have sterling silver overlay, it's going to be over $1,000. So there's something for everyone. The other thing is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to just do some nice basic printing? Are you going to be an art student, or are you going to do calligraphy? The one thing that fountain pens can do that ballpoints can't do is they can make really fun lines. Where do you find them? Well, online there's people like the Goulet Pen Company, Anderson Pens, Jet Pens, that have great websites. There's also brick and mortar real close to home. Two Hands Papery, Meiningers, and Gyrie's all still sell fountain pens and fountain pen ink to go with them. And the best place to get a pen is at a pen show. And as Greg pointed out, here in Colorado, right down in Denver, there's going to be a pen show. I'm the show organizer, so yes, this is an unbiased plug, but you can also go to Dallas or San Fran if you can't wait, because both of those come first.
Thank you, Ed. Just so you know, this is a fountain pen. Now, I will teach you one thing about fountain pens. There will be a quiz as soon as we're over for the night. But if I open the pen, voila. And by the way, when you open it, I learned you don't pull the top, you just pop it open. If I take the top and put it on the pen, what do you call that? It's called posting. So, the other day I told my wife, would you post this letter? And she said, right now. Anyway, that's the lesson. So if I take this off, I do this. What did I just do? Very good. And for those of you that do love to write, the pen posse, you gotta go there. It is true. Geeks, we never said, this whole thing about being normal is really overplayed. Okay? You gotta live on the edge. Gotta live on the edge.